Hi, scientists. So I'm going to walk you through module number 36. This one is all about the rock cycle. So first, complete your warm-up, which is a review of different types of rocks, which is very important to always keep reviewing, okay? Pause the video and go ahead and do that warm-up and check out your results. And then come on back to the module and let's go on to notes on the rock cycle. So in this module, we're going to take some notes on a sheet that we started in module 35. So hopefully you've already completed module 35 and you already have the notes called Rocks in the Rock Cycle. So you're going to go to your Google Drive and I recommend just typing in rocks and you'll come up with, you're looking for notes to rocks in the rock cycle or copy of notes to rocks in the rock cycle. Oh boy, this is not what I was looking for. Let me go back. I need to change that. Here we go. Copy of notes to rocks in the rock cycle. Of course, this should also just be in your science folder. So in module 35, in the last one, we did the first half all the way to this table here. And today we're going to do the second half, which is rock cycle, how rocks change over time. And you have a diagram here, complete with all the different processes changing rocks from one to another. And we're just going to focus on the vocabulary terms that are in this rock cycle. So this is our notes today, and it's a fun version of the notes because you can click all of these words and you can take, it'll take you to a slide that has a detailed description of each of these processes and each of these types of rocks, so we can choose our own adventure. So let's say, why don't we start at magma? That seems like a good place to start, although you can start at any place along the rock cycle, any place you want, and it keeps going. You'll notice there's no beginning, there's no end. There's arrows going everywhere, connecting every type of rock, even going through the middle of the cycle. So before I start at magma, I do want to point out that there's different colored arrows. And the colors are important. Each different color has a different process on it. So the yellow are both heat and pressure. And they're pointing in the same direction towards metamorphic rock, because no matter what rock it starts off as, if it experiences heat and pressure, it's going to become a metamorphic rock. The orange are both melting. So if we start, and there should be another orange arrow here, from sedimentary to magma. But no matter where a rock starts off as, if it melts, it's going to become magma. And then the green arrows are weathering and erosion, coming from each type of rock and leading to sediments, because any type of rock can experience weathering and erosion, and it will end up as sediments. So let's go ahead and start our journey over here at magma. So magma is one of your vocabulary terms. And I want you to just copy what you see in bold, the dark bold word. So magma is hot molten rock. Molten is like melted, but it's a little bit like a thicker consistency. So it's not quite like water. It's more of like oobleck. At the surface of the earth, magma is called lava. So the only difference between magma and lava is that lava is up here at the surface and magma is down below the surface. All right, so our next step, the only next step after magma is cooling. Cooling is not in your vocabulary, but magma and lava cool and harden to form rocks. If it cools slowly, these rocks can have large crystals like granite. If it cools quickly, it can be shiny like obsidian or have gas bubbles like pumice. So look at this image over here. If it cools below the surface of the volcano, which can happen, it happens all the time, then it'll form big crystals and it's called intrusive igneous rock. When the volcano erupts and lava flows out, then you get different types of igneous rock like pumice or obsidian. All right, so let's head over to the next step, which is igneous rock. This is already in your notes, so you don't have to copy anything for this, but here you have some images of lava forming into igneous rock and some diagrams of some volcanoes showing your intrusive and your extrusive igneous rocks. So we are at 1 phase of the rock cycle called igneous rock, and anything can happen to an igneous rock. It can be weathered and eroded, there can be heat and pressure, or it can melt again. So let's go on to weathering and erosion. So these are 2 words in your vocabulary for today. Weathering is the process of water and wind breaking rocks into smaller pieces called sediments. Okay, so weathering means breaking down into smaller pieces. Erosion is similar but slightly different. Erosion is the process of transporting sediments to another location. So here in this diagram, you see wind and gravity eroding this desert sand away. It's moving them to another location. So when you have these 2 processes, weathering and erosion, you end up on the next step of the rock cycle, which would be sediment. So what are sediments? So sediments are small, loose particles of rock. So I think of them as sand, but they can also be bigger like pebbles. They can be small like silt. So they can range in size from pebbles to silt. They can be large or small. So the next stop on the rock cycle is called compacting and cementation. So this is a process that takes sediments and turns them into sedimentary rock. So compaction and cementation are the processes that turn loose sediments into sedimentary rock. This usually happens where there's water and after sediments have been deposited in layers. So you see in this GIF here how they're being dropped at the bottom of a cliff underwater, and after maybe thousands or even millions of years, they're going to be compacted, meaning pressed together, and cemented. With all this water and minerals in between them, it's going to act like a glue and cement it into a new rock. Which takes us to our next step, sedimentary rock. So we've already learned about sedimentary rocks in module 35. But sedimentary rocks form from sediments, and you often see them maybe on the side of a cliff. You see like these flat layers. Those are layers of sedimentary rocks that were built up over probably millions of years or more. You would see sedimentary rocks on the sides of canyons because that's typically what forms around these riverbeds where rivers erode canyons away. Also, fossils are found in sedimentary rocks, and you have all kinds of sedimentary rocks form from different size sediments. So there's lots of choices, lots of things could happen to a sedimentary rock. It could be weathered and eroded, there could be heat and pressure, or it could melt and become magma. So let's go with the one we haven't done yet, which is heat and pressure. So let's say this rock is buried deep below the surface of the earth where there's a lot of pressure, and maybe it gets heated up by the mantle or by a magma chamber. Well, heat and pressure has the power to transform a rock. So rocks can transform under intense heat and pressure. These conditions can be found deep below the surface of the earth, often near a magma chamber. So this is not something that can happen above ground. It has to happen deep below the surface of the earth. And it transforms rocks into metamorphic rocks. So here are some examples of metamorphic rock. You'll notice they all kind of have these like bent stripes. Metamorphic rocks have been transformed by heat and pressure. So this one is granite and this one is gneiss. So granite, if it has enough heat and pressure on it, will transform into a different looking rock. And that takes us through all of the slides here in the rock cycle, but it keeps going and things can happen to this metamorphic rock. Maybe it melts and becomes magma. Maybe it turns into sediments through weathering and erosion. So that takes care of your notes for the day. Yeah. You can head on back to the module. Remember, we're in 36, and your next step is to use your notes. So for this first try, I want you to use your notes. Oops, excuse me. Well, actually, what I meant to tell you was to use your notes and do the rock cycle review. However, I've moved it to to module 37. So at this point, this would be a good time to go to module 37 and do the rock cycle review. So what you have here is a blank diagram, similar to the one that we just moved through on the slides, and the same one that is in your notes. Not those, these over here. So it's not the same one, but it's very, very similar. It has the same stops on it, but they're in a different place. So don't let that trick you. But I want you to think about, what is the process that forms magma? What would form magma from a rock? What would form an igneous rock from magma? Okay, so you have 5 questions here. Try and fill in those missing processes between each stop on the rock cycle. This quiz has 2 attempts. It's okay if you want to use your notes on the first attempt and then come back to it in a few days and try it without your notes. And that wraps up module number 36. I'm going to talk about ride on the rock cycle in my next video.